Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Zynga. Today, we are happy to host a very special event for the Women at Zynga team. It's in support of industry-wide diversity and inclusion efforts. It's a very important thing for Zynga. From our board of directors, of whom three of our folks here are today, Carol, Ellen, and Janice, are joining us. But every member of Zynga, this is a critical part of why we're here. It's part of our mission is to create a better industry, a better company, and to create opportunities for the next generation of creators as they come into the industry and so that they can build the best games in the world. So we're very excited to be able to put together these types of groups. We're very honored to have such a distinguished panel today. We have Trisha Yearwood, you'll hear more about in a moment. We have Rebecca Covington Webber from Hamilton. And Sarah Lacy, who's doing so much for the industry and for women's issues in the industry in Silicon Valley. So welcome. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Phoung Philipps, who's leading our efforts here. And she is really the engine behind all of the stuff that we're doing and really pulling together such distinguished groups and putting together such great opportunities for folks to come together and talk about these issues. So what I also wanted to do was give this team an opportunity to hear from our senator, Senator Harris. She's on the road right now campaigning, so she couldn't join us in person today, but she put together a video for us that we'd like to play now, and she wanted to give her thoughts on today's subject. So thank you. Please roll.
Hi, Women at Zynga. I am so sorry I cannot be with you in person today. But I'll tell you, my mother and I both worked in male-dominated fields. She in science, me in law enforcement. And I know how important it is to ensure that all people are treated equally in the workplace. And I applaud the work that Zynga is doing in reviewing hiring and promoting practices that ensure fairness and equity in the workplace, because I know that is not always the case. The truth is, in 2019, women are not treated equally in our country, certainly not paid equally, and for too long, the responsibility has been on women to hold corporations accountable for wage discrimination. Well, this has to stop, and that's why, as part of my campaign, I've rolled out the most aggressive plan to close the gender pay gap in America's history. Because it's time to hold corporations accountable and pay and make sure that women are paid equally and that the systems are transparent. And so we all have to do more to advocate for full equality and workplaces that value diversity and inclusion. I want to thank you all for the work you're doing to be part of this important conversation and to be leaders in this conversation. Take care.
Great. Thanks again to Senator Harris for those remarks. With that, I'd like to get out of the way so everybody can hear from our distinguished panel. And I'd like to hand it off to Kate Huber, who will set us up for the next section. Thank you.
Great. Hi, thank you, Frank. So as a leader in entertainment, we are very committed to equal opportunity workforce and definitely believe that a culture of inclusion is the cornerstone to our success and really what helps us be the most innovative. So inclusion and diversity are really important topics, both to me personally and to Zynga. In the gaming industry, women make up only about 22% of the workforce, but nearly half of mainstream gamers are female. And so there's a huge opportunity to make our workforce more reflective of our player base, and we want to be part of that change. We are trying to be one of the top destinations for diverse talent in gaming and are taking really active steps in order to be that. So some examples, earlier this year, we were one of only 13 companies and the only gaming company to sign the California Pay Equity Pledge, which further supports the work we've already been doing to ensure compensation decisions are made without regard to gender, race, ethnicity in all of our locations across the world. Zynga is also very proud to have 50-50 gender balance on our board of directors since 2017. So 4 out of our 8 members are female, which is awesome. So in addition to some of those efforts, we also have a really broad base of employee resource groups like See Pride, like See Parents, that help us support our underrepresented communities. Women at Zynga, one of our employee resource groups, which is hosting this event today, is our longest standing and most active group at the company. And its goal is really, how do we empower women to succeed and become leaders within their careers and in the community? So with that, thank you all so much for coming, and I will turn it over to Crystal Bowen. She heads our privacy and products and legal and is moderating today's panel. So thank you all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We are extremely excited to welcome this amazing panel of talented and successful women who come from a diverse variety of backgrounds and industries, but yet share a common passion. That passion is a passion for the things that they do, as well as a passion to make sure that there is equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion for all of the people that have the opportunity to come behind them. So with that, I want to welcome each of the members of our panel. We will start with our very special guests here today. I would like to first introduce you to Trisha Yearwood. Trisha is a country music superstar, Grammy Award-winning, also has won numerous country music awards, Academy of Country Music Awards, Country Music Association honors. She's celebrating her 20th year as a Grand Ole Opry member this year. She is also a New York Times best-selling author. And in addition to that, she hosts an Emmy Award-winning TV cooking show and is a lifestyle guru. So,
just like I wrote it.
Next to her, we have the equally amazing Rebecca Covington Webber. Rebecca is currently starring in the 3rd National Tour of Hamilton, where she is a swing cast member who plays all of the Schuyler sisters. She was also seen on Broadway in the Broadway production of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, where she played the role of Janelle Woods. She's also been on Broadway in the Motown the musical, where she portrayed a number of characters, including Gwen Gordy, Cindy Birdsong of the Supremes, Gladys Horton of the Marvelettes, and many others. Rebecca was also part of the international and national tours of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, Mamma Mia, Ain't Misbehavin', Motown the musical, and Thoroughly Modern Millie. She's as well a proud member of the Actors Equity Association, and she has also played some of her favorite roles in regional theaters across the U.S., including in Ada, Ain't Misbehavin', Joe's Cafe, and others. We welcome you. Thank you so much. Sarah Lacy. Sarah Lacy has done so much for Silicon Valley and tech and starting the conversation about what it means to be a company that needs to be equal and diverse and open in the tech industry. She is the founder and CEO of Chairman Mom, a subscription-based platform with a simple goal, which is to help working mothers solve the toughest problems that they face. She also founded, while she was on maternity leave, Pando.com and built it into a profitable investigative journalism company. And she's been a journalist for nearly 20 years, known for her outspoken reporting, including where she helped build TechCrunch. She's also an author. Her most recent book is titled Uterus. A Uterus is a Feature, Not a Bug. The Working Woman's Guide to Overthrowing the Patriarch. Welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we welcome our very own Phoung Philipps, who is our Chief Legal Officer and the executive sponsor of WAS, Women at Zynga. She is also a board member of the CMCP, which is the California Minority Council Program. And she is the recipient of numerous awards as well. Women of Influence Award, the Recorder's Women Leaders in Tech Law Award, and most recently, the Diversity Award from the Bay Area Corporate Council. So let's jump right in then. Trisha, I'd like to start with you.
Great.
You have a new song, a new single that is already killing it on the charts, Every Girl in This Town, which is all about female empowerment. Why are you so passionate about elevating that message? What does that mean to you?
I know we only have 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep my answer brief. It's a song that I chose because I liked what it said about all the things that women are. And we talked before we got up here about, there's a lyric in the song that says, "You got this, baby, so what if you don't?" It's become my favorite lyric because to me it speaks to sometimes we're all in our A game, and I think especially if you're in business where people see you, they see the best side of you. But this song says sometimes you aren't on your A game, sometimes you don't have your shit together. Can I say that? And it's okay to be who you are, and whatever that looks like for you is okay. And I think we need, I'm in an industry where we're going backwards and we're playing less women on the radio. I'm shocked to be on the radio. I'm a 54-year-old woman, so that's not something that I expected to see. And I think it's the power of that song. And I think it's like there are a lot of girls and young girls and older girls who are going, yes, I want to feel empowered. That we're not just being quiet anymore. I think it's good.
And Sarah, I want to pick up a little bit on that because you have the company that you started, Chairman Mom. And I think it speaks to what Trisha's lyric was just about. You've got this baby, so what if you don't? Yeah. What is Chairman Mom? How does that resonate with you, that statement?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it resonates really deeply because I think one of the taxes that women pay, especially in a corporate world and especially in tech, is we have to be more perfect. I mean, you look at when a CEO like Mark Zuckerberg or Travis Kalanick stumble, and everyone says, oh, well, they just need a Cheryl to come in and clean up the mess. They're just a brilliant founder, and they can't be expected to follow laws or not up in democracy. But, meantime, Elizabeth Holmes defrauds some people, and we have 16 movies about it. We are held to a different standard. And, the reason I started Chairman Mom is because I just saw there wasn't a welcoming place for women on the internet. We did some research, again, kind of like you were saying in gaming. More than 60% of women are on social media. Women are the backbone of social media. We have built these multi-billion-dollar companies, and we're getting abused by them. I mean, we did some research before we launched that proved what every woman in this room knows, which is there's 90% of women witness mom shaming on Facebook. 2/3 see it frequently, and as a result, 4% of women will ask advice online because they are going to be shamed, they're going to be called out, they're going to be made to feel like failures for just waking up every morning and trying to do their best. And we believed it was built into the software to sell ads. And we believed if we created a subscription-based platform where we didn't need to addict you or monetize you or manipulate you into getting into fights, we believed women didn't want to wake up every morning tearing each other down. And I'm proud to say, and a little over a year since us being out of beta, we have thousands of users, more than 30% actively ask and answer questions on the site, which is unheard of. User-generated content is usually 1%, so there was a big hunger for this. We have never had to take down a single comment. We have never had a single abusive comment. We have never had a single flagged comment. And we discuss things like guns in homes with playdates and how do you navigate that. We discuss things like abortion. We discuss things that are, and we have women in red states and women in blue states. We were baited into taking each other down. And it was this myth of perception of perfection that did it. And I think that message is so important because if we can get away from women feeling like they have to be perfect in order to have a shot at equality, what a favor to do to the next generation.
Now, Rebecca, you're in a different industry. You're also, of course, in entertainment, but you're on stage and you sing and you act, and that's an industry where there's not been traditionally a lot of African American women, and a lot of African American women in leading roles or starring roles. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience is, having been in the industry that you're in now, both with inclusivity and exclusivity, and what that looks like and feels like for you?
Yeah, so I'm basically just a girl from Kentucky with a dream, and so growing up, I didn't get to see Broadway and what Broadway was except on TV, on the Tony Awards, and there was just nobody that looked like me. And so that was really hard for me because I'm like, how do I do what I love, looking how I look and being who I am? And so I ended up going to Belmont University in Nashville, and yes! And I was actually the first African-American person to graduate with my degree.
In 2005.
In 2005, yeah. So even in college, it felt hard because, we had alumni that would come back or people that would come from New York and still nobody looked like me. And so after college, I was on a tour, and the tour ended in Newark, New Jersey, and I just literally got on the subway and moved to New York. My mom flew up, and we just moved, and It's awesome to be a part of a generation that we do have African American and women coming to the forefront. Seeing the Tony Awards now looks very different than what it looked like when I was growing up. And so I love putting my time into going to schools and going places to show little brown girls and little girls of color that we do belong here, there is a place for you, and that, we're going to continue rising.
Mm-hmm. And what does it mean to you? I mean, it's amazing to me still when I hear that in 2005, when you graduated, that we still have this title, the first African American doing anything, or graduating from a school and a university with that degree. What does it mean to you now as you're continuing to pursue your career in terms of reaching back and lifting up? You were talking about that just a moment ago.
That honestly means the world to me. Just because I feel like as you walk through this life, you just walk with such purpose. And I feel like everyone's purpose for something. And I know for me, it's really special to me to be able to give back, to be able to give my time and to give my talents, because I wouldn't have been here if there was someone who didn't give time and talent to invest in myself. And so I find that to be very important, because legacy is something that the show talks about a lot. What is a legacy? The show Hamilton. And it's very important to me to leave a legacy that people understand that it's important to give to the next generation in order to continue to make this industry and to make this world better.
Now, I know, Phoung, because I know you, that legacy is also very important to you. And I know that you have the legacy of your parents to look up to, and the legacy that you're trying to pave and leave for your children. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience is coming to the United States, how you got here, and why it's important to you?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here, too. It's incredibly special for me. So my story actually begins in 1980, when my parents, my two older brothers, and I fled Vietnam by night on a boat. What makes it even more dramatic in my mind as I look back is my parents are actually afraid of water and can't swim, yet they were willing to risk everything to take this journey so we, their children, could have opportunities. So today, I still think of my parents as my forever heroes. And the risk kind of continued even as we went on this journey. When we were at the refugee camp in the Philippines, my father found out that we actually were sponsored by a family in Paris, where they were willing to take all 5 of us. But he was very concerned about whether he wanted to take this risk. So he went to the Buddhist monk who happened to be staying there and said, "I'm really afraid. I'm not sure if I should do this." And the Buddhist monk's response was, "You should be so grateful, first of all, that someone's willing to sponsor the entire family." Because at the time, a lot of families were split up. The kids would go, the parents and the kids, but rarely would you have an opportunity where all 5 could go. And so my dad said, "So should I go?" And he's like, "You must be patient. If you want your only daughter to succeed, you must wait to go to America." And so everything I live by is that alone. So for me, my parents have always said, to be successful, you have to take risks. You also have to know the importance of education. You have to persevere. And most importantly, you have to be kind and support others. And so that's why I came to Zynga, because I had that platform where when I met with Frank and the rest of the board members and the executive team, they allowed me that platform. And that's why Zynga and women at Zynga are incredibly important to me.
And so when you talk, each of you have talked about sort of what your backgrounds and your experiences that led you to where you are now. Can you talk a little bit more about what keeps you grounded and what keeps you wanting to pursue the work of diversity and inclusion and equality? And so I know, Trisha, you've spoken out recently with respect to play on country music and females not being played as much as male artists on country music. But there's a lot of other things that go into what make you you and what makes your career what it is. What keeps you wanting to make sure that you're writing songs and promoting female empowerment?
Well, we so much was said before we sat down together, about how I don't understand that if you really sit someone and push them into a corner and say, why is it this way? There's not a good answer. There aren't really statistics that prove that keeping women from being in the workforce, keeping equal pay down, keep not playing women on the radio, there's no data that supports it. It's not real. And I think we have, as women, in the past, kind of, there's always been, I just work harder, I keep my head down. My husband always says, women have to work twice as hard to get half as much. But we're just kind of going, well, I guess that's just the way it is. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's why we continue to move forward, because there's no reason why I should look at you and you should be doing the same job I'm doing and making more money than me or less money than me because of whatever someone else has decided is your problem. Whether it's because you're a girl, whether because you're a woman of color, whatever it is, it's like, who decided that that's the way that it should be? In the music industry, I did all the research. The statistic that blew my mind was that I started in 1991. There were a lot of girls on the radio. And when I kind of did this, what I guess you'd call it a comeback, I've been doing this for 28 years. The first question was, why do you think there's so few women in radio? And I'm like, I didn't even realize this. And so I started delving in. And since 2000, the women played on radio has declined by 66%. That number blew my mind. The last number won by a girl was just this last week, and it was the first one in like 18 months. And so I think, and the men who, and again, I'm not excluding men, there are the men who support women, yay, we love you so much. But the answers are, well, the women aren't singing in as interesting as songs as the men. And I'm like, really? Because you don't even want me to go there. Or we don't play women back to back because people don't listen through. I'm like, well, where's your research to support that people turn the channel when you play two women in a row? They don't have it. So for me, it's a long answer, but the answer is to continue to do what we do to inspire. I want to inspire girls who are not a size 0 and girls who don't think they are pretty enough, or girls who, I want them to understand that I have the same anxiety, the same worries, the same issues they do, and we need people that are saying this. We're real here, and we don't always have it together, and we're still doing it, and we want to inspire more girls to get involved.
Yeah. Can I jump in on that?
Absolutely.
So I think this was my big aha moment in the last couple of years when it comes to tech. Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, one of the things that was very strong about it, there's a lot people could say about what they didn't like about it. I think one thing that was very strong was she did a ton of research and she produced a data-based framework of proving that companies would be stronger if there was more diversity, that they'd be more profitable, that women-led companies return capital faster, female VCs actually perform better, even though they're put in ghettos like e-commerce and not allowed to invest in certain high-growth startups and categories. That if you have a more equal marriage, your odds of divorce are less likely. Boys do great when they're we can go on and on and on. There is data, conclusive data, across every single metric of life that shows that balance and diversity and equality makes everyone happier, makes everyone richer. No one cared. Nothing changed in our industry. We're in an industry that claims to be data-driven. How many profiles do you read, because I've written half of them, where someone says, I tell my team, in God we trust, everyone else bring data. Like, I think God could come down and say, read the stats and lean in, and people will be like, I don't know, they're women. You show them data, and it doesn't change anything. And so for the last 2 years, I've gone to speak at different tech companies, and I've talked to individuals, and I've been like, okay, so we've shown you the data. You say you're data-driven. Nothing has changed. In many ways, our stats are getting worse as well. Women get 2% of the venture capital, which is supposed to be the great meritocracy of American capitalism. And I've said, so you just hate women. Why do you hate women? And phrasing it that way is amazing because they don't debate whether or not we have equality. Well, let's start with the framework we don't. Let's start with the framework the data shows we should. So why do you hate women? I finally got one of the best answers that I think was really honest, and I think is at the core of this for our industry. A guy looked at me and said, okay, you're always telling us how Facebook is so bad at this, Apple's so bad at this, Google's so bad at this, and look at the success of those companies. And I said, wait a minute. So you think the fact that they don't include women and people of color is what has made them successful? And that's where we are as an industry. This is an industry of pattern recognition, not data. And until people like me have to pitch 70 damn VCs to get them to write me a stupid check and actually survive and build a profitable company that goes public and makes it, Until we do that over and over again, Katrina Lake of Stitch Fix holding her baby as she takes that company public, and all of us, whether we like their clothes or not, supporting her and subscribing. I mean, this is what matters. This is what matters, is every single one of us need to collectively break that pattern. And until VCs have that moment of saying, shit, I should have backed her, the way they did when they passed on Google because of the valuation, or the way they did when they didn't believe a 19-year-old Mark Zuckerberg could build a social network, until they have that regret, we will not change this industry, because there's no FOMO with female-led companies, because they know you will struggle to raise money at every round. And we got to change the pattern, because they don't care about data.
So how do you do that? I mean, I understand the issue, but what's the path to solution?
It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of pain for the women who are willing to stick it out and do it, and the women who are willing to speak up. And I will say, I'm talking a lot about entrepreneurship because that's where I am. Within large tech companies, single biggest thing that my data has shown changes it is exactly what we're sitting in right now, employee resource groups. We did some research around this because we have a corporate product for Chairman Mom, and we partner with a lot of the ERGs, and I wanted to get to know them better and the role they play within companies. And our research showed that 90% of women, this is across industries, not just tech, who've been part of an employee resource group say it has made their life better at that company. I don't know anything else a company does for women on a systemic basis across industries that has that much of an impact. Nearly 50% of women said the existence or quality of an ERG would impact their decision of where to work. Investing in employee resource groups and empowering them and having executive sponsorship, not just making a bunch of people bring in speakers and put out wine and cheese, but really moving the needle.
I do more than that.
That was exactly what I was saying.
She brought biscuits.
I brought biscuits. And gravy.
No, I was actually paying you a compliment.
No, I know.
But, you know, real executive leadership, because sometimes there's these young women who excite this whole group of women, and, you know, the leadership's like, well, yeah, you can have some budget to bring in an author, but there's no senior leadership who's tapped into that. There's no one who's kind of taking their voices and their asks and bringing them up into the mountain. And exactly what you were talking about, the best employee resource groups use it to rebuild the products so that they actually can make more money because they're tapping into the audience out there. Disney is one of the best case studies with this. You look at how Disney has changed from Pocahontas to Coco in terms of how they deal with race and culture and ethnicity. A lot of that was driven by internal ERGs. So I think, you know, if you are, I mean, exactly what you said, Frank, at the beginning, thanks for coming, I'm gonna get out of the way. Here's some resources. I mean, I think that's one of the best ways that companies will change this. And eventually companies will lead. And when companies lead, if you take the time to do that work, you will disproportionately get the talent. We delayed our product launch by 6 months because we knew we had to have a female CTO build this product. And as a result, every engineering hire now is so easy because every woman wants to work in an all-female developer team, and we're one of the only growing startups that has one.
Well, I like to add some stuff as well. I mean, one thing at Women at Zynga that I'm incredibly proud of is we actually have this wonderful program that if you're at the cusp of your career, we will actually get you an executive coach for 16 weeks. And that's phenomenal. I don't know many companies that will do that. The other thing we offer is panels, discussions like this, where we are inspired. And the other important thing is thinking about the next generation, as you were saying. So we have STEM programming as well. And I always think about it in terms of what can I do? And I think for me, I realized that when I joined this company, I wanted to change the way the industry looked, but is that something I can do tomorrow? Probably not on my own. I wanted to change the way this company was in terms of just making sure that we were hiring more women and diverse individuals. But could I do that alone in the next 24 hours? I can't. But one thing I could do was change the way my legal department looked. So I am proud to tell you, 19 months later, or maybe it's 20 months now since I've been here, my legal department is 75% women and a rainbow of wonderful individuals of ethnic diversity. So we can make a difference, and you just have to get out there and do it.
Rebecca, what does that look like for you? In your industry, we talked about a little bit about your affiliation with the Actors Equity Association. What are organizations within your industry that you think sponsor and support inclusion and diversity?
Well, there's not much, but the Actors Equity Association just hired a diversity director because there has been a lot of talk of how do we make our business across the board more diverse. And on the Tonys, Rachel Chafkin just won a Tony for directing Hadestown, and she was just speaking about it's a pipeline issue. You know, it starts at the top, and at the top they don't trust women to write, to direct, to produce, and so we don't have women or diverse casting directors or agents or anything, and so it's something that my husband and I have talked about investing in the next generation of saying, do we start a scholarship because to become a casting director, you have to live in New York unpaid for like 6 to 12 months. It's almost impossible, you know, unless you're being bankrolled. And so it's like, we want to be able to invest in individuals who have a passion to do it, but maybe just don't necessarily have the resources. And so we are hoping that it will become more diverse and that we will get more women running it. Our Aunt Peggy tour here in San Francisco is all run by women. We have a woman. Our production stage manager is a woman. Our entire company management team are women. We have a woman resident director and a woman music director, and that is rare to impossible to see in this business. And so it's something we're very proud of, and it's something that we know can work, especially if it works in the machine of Hamilton and in the world of Hamilton. And so we're working hard to make sure that women and people of color are included across the board and not just as the face of our industry.
And as you're touring with Hamilton and get to meet young Black and brown children and children of color, what are the experiences that they're sharing with you about what it means to see your face and your husband's face and the face of the people in the cast playing characters that are not traditionally played by African American or Latino actors?
They always just talk about how inspirational it is, because even though we do have at Disney the Princess Tiana and we do have the things that are coming up, it's still very very individual cases. It's not across the board. You don't get to see yourself as many things, but we do have like one of each. We're growing, and so they do talk about how inspirational it is, and it's just so exciting to see them on the front row knowing all the words. It's so exciting to talk to them and say, hey, are you taking classes? Or if they're like, can you come speak in my school? And it's like, please, I would love to, because we just want to inspire young kids of color that you can do this and that there's no dream that's impossible and no dream that's out of reach.
And Trisha, picking up on that theme, you've been wildly successful in your career, doing a number of different things. And you have a voice now, and you're using it well to speak out and to be supportive of other artists. What do you tell people who are newer or younger in their tenure in their career, who are just starting out and maybe don't have the platform that you have? How do you see empowering them to have success and giving them tools to use to reach the pinnacle of success like you have?
I think the biggest thing that I tell people is even when you're starting out and you don't think you have power, you do. Mm-hmm. And to own that power, even because you know what's best for you. And a lot of times, especially in the beginning, a lot of different people are telling you how you should do this, or what you should look like, or what music you should sing, or all of these things. And it's easy as a young girl, I was 19 when I moved to Nashville, to go, well, maybe I should listen to them instead of this voice in my head that's telling me what I want to be. And that's the best advice I think to give, is that to trust that voice, even if you don't perceive your power, you have it, mm-hmm. and to stay with that. And then no matter what happens, however successful you become, or if you change your whole pattern and you do something different, you're being true to yourself, mm-hmm. and that is going to serve you well. And then the other thing I would say to that is, if you are lucky enough to have success, you know, I can talk all day long about being a woman who wants to empower people, but if I'm not hiring people to change that conversation myself, I'm in a male-dominated industry. Mm-hmm. And so when I went on tour with my husband and we merged our crews together, he said, if you got a couple of guys on your crew that you really want to bring to the tour that you think are just the best, like we'll incorporate them into our crew. And I said, yeah, I got 2 guys and they're girls. And I brought them, and they were the hardest working girls on that tour, and they were in jobs that are not typically given to women. And I'm proud of that. And they proved, I wasn't worried about them. I'm like, I know you're going to love these girls, and everyone did. So I think I have that responsibility now that I am in a position of being able to hire to create that diversity. Our crew for our cooking show is so diverse, and men and women, and every color of the rainbow, and every sexual orientation, and everything you could be, because they're the best at their job. It's not It's not, well, we're going to make sure we got 3 girls. It's like, they're great at their jobs. Give them an opportunity. Give them a shot.
And how do you get people in the room to listen to that? How do you get, and Sarah, you were talking a little bit about this, but I open it up to all of you. How do you get people in the room to listen to the voice that says, I need to give people who are underrepresented, whether it's women, people of color, or LGBT community, I need to give people an opportunity to be seen and to be heard so that they have the opportunity for success? How do you allow people in the room with the power to hear that?
So for me, I've been very fortunate as I've gotten more senior in my career. My job as a woman leader is to allow that to build up, right? My job is to not only be the voice, but be their supporter. And if there's an individual or a group of people in the room who want to speak their mind, I encourage it. In fact, I sort of push people to do so. And I think that's really important as a woman leader. But if you're a junior person, I would suggest go find an advocate, someone you look up to, someone who you want to emulate, and ask them to help you.
Also help each other. I mean, I know so many women, like when I was in the throes of, running Pando, and we were like public enemy #1 of the bro economy. And, I had talked to so many women, so many really powerful women in Silicon Valley who had way more money and prestige and power than I do. And they always would, like, on the slide, pull me aside and be like, I'm so inspired by what you're doing. One day I'll be famous enough or successful enough, or I'll, whatever the fill in the blank is, that I'll start speaking out. And if these women weren't doing it by this point, they were never going to do it. I didn't wait until I was at any level. I did it because it was the truth, and I was a journalist, and it needed to be done. And I think, there's so many women I talk to within companies that feel like, well, I'm too junior to speak out. And I think you're exactly right. Like, find the advocates so, you're not risking your career. Do it in a smart way. But, like, your peers can be advocates as well. And again, this is what's so powerful about really well-run ERGs is you can all come together and have one voice. And the best ERGs include men as well as women, include lots of different people, because you can all come together with one voice, and then one person isn't exposed. I think that we can all do something every day to kick a dent in the patriarchy. And sometimes it's really small. Sometimes it's just if someone looks like they're having a shitty day, bringing them a cup of coffee, or telling them that they look amazing, or whatever it is. I mean, you can do little small things, but you can also do big things. If someone's getting talked over in a meeting, don't make it on them to have to call it out. Call it out for them. Say something for them, especially men in the room. There's so much we can do. It doesn't have to be these big, grand, bold statements. It doesn't have to be these, Google walkout level actions. Tiny little things. Ask yourself every day, how can I amplify the women and people of color and LGBTQ people all around me? Because there's something you can do that takes 5 minutes of your time if you have that mindset and you're always looking for it.
And what about, you've mentioned supporters, your tribe. Who's your tribe? And who do you rely on for uplifting and that sort of, when I need a kick or a boost or whatever, someone who's going to be honest with you about that to help you in your career and help you succeed and get where you are?
My tribe is here.
My
husband's here, and I have 2 incredible cast members that are my sisters. They're here with me. It's so important in this business to have sounding boards, to have checkmates, like people that can check you, and that you can honestly talk to without possibly bringing negativity into the building, and making sure that you are a part of uplifting someone's day and uplifting someone's mood. Because in our business, we deal with opinions a lot. We deal with a lot of no's. Mm-hmm. We deal with a lot of negativity, and just, reviews come out about your performance. And there's a lot to combat in terms of negativity, in terms of people having opinions about how you look, how you sound, what you wore. And so it's really, really, really important to have a tribe in our industry. Yeah.
And we don't have time to be jealous of each other, too. I mean, I'm going back to that for a second, because your point about starting a company where you found that women really do want to wake up and be positive with one another. Yeah. Because sometimes when there are fewer women in an industry, we're like, well, I need to make sure I get what I get, and I'm in competition with this woman. And the truth is, if we all support each other, we all succeed. And we don't have time to be like, in my industry, I'm supportive of all these girls in my genre, whether or not I listen to their records, or because we need each other. And I don't need to be catty about some other girl in my business who's selling more records than me. It's like, we need to support each other. Those girls are my tribe. My management company, I took it in-house about a year ago, and it's called Team TY now, and it's women-led, and we get a lot done. It's pretty dang cool. And there are a couple of guys in our Team TY, but it didn't start off to be that way, but it ended up that way. And it's wonderful to see all these women in these positions of power coming together, going, how do we move this brand forward? And it's wonderful to see. And then the guy who's my tribe is my husband, who's so in touch with his feminine side. I'm like, this morning he's like giving me a pep talk, telling me to put the cape on. It's like he so believes in equality. And so that's the other thing, is that the men in our lives who champion this. I think a lot of times men who don't get it are threatened by women talking about being equal, but there's the men who get it and are supportive need to also be having that conversation, and they are.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, the stats don't show that women only do better. The stats show diverse teams do better. And I find with my company, we're an all-female company except for my co-founder, who's a guy, and then we have one male VC on our board. And I will say male VCs have written us way bigger checks than female VCs. We've been more supported by men in this industry than a lot of the women, which may be coincidental, but it's not lost on me. And I'll say in board meetings, I appreciate that blend because both of them have white male ego. And white male ego allows you to say, oh, we've got this. Oh, sure, we're running out of money. But no, this is all going to work. Whereas as a woman, you're like, here's everything that's going to go wrong. And I think blending those different perspectives in tribe is so important. You want the people who are living what you're living and know your pain, but you also want the people who have never had to face that pain and never had to face that adversity, who totally almost look at the world with rose-colored glasses and encourage you to do that, because you're not always going to find bias. You will a lot of the time, but you're not always going to find it. And sometimes always anticipating it, can hold you back a little. But I think my other tribe are just my children. I mean, I have a 6 and 7-year-old who are both hold me accountable, but are also my biggest fans. And I tell you, when you come home at the end of a day, either feeling amazing and your children are not impressed by this dinner, gotta be honest, or you feel like you have just had the shit kicked out of you by someone and they run up to you you're the Beatles and you're the most important person to them. It both keeps you grounded, but it boosts you up. And for me, it built so much confidence I did not have as a woman before, where I felt and talk about connecting to your gut. You are the expert on your children. No one knows your children better than you do. And you see every day when you listen to your gut how well things go. And we all have experiences of a doctor trying to talk you out of something, or a teacher, or whatever it is. And it's that confidence of nope, listen to myself, I was right. Nope, listen to myself, I was right. Mm-hmm. I personally think these are the 2 coolest people on earth, and they think I'm the coolest person, so fuck all y'all. That is the biggest medicine for me.
Yeah. Do you have experiences that you can speak to where you have not felt, as confident or not as secure as you feel now, as where you are now and the success that you've had in your career? And what has propelled you to be that voice in the room, or to speak up, or to talk to girls even when you're not feeling the best yourself about who you are?
Well, I'm a lawyer, and I was a lawyer a long time ago. And at the time, you can imagine, it was very male-dominated. I was always the only woman in the room. And the females that were ahead of me had that jealousy issue, right? Oh, Phoung, you got to work on this because people like your personality. Oh, no, right? And so for me, as I got more senior, it was the ability to understand that the men in the room are actually also your advocate, and you should use them as your support. For me, what I think about is the future of my daughters, and I have one sitting right there. And I have 2 young girls who I want to show that the future is bright and that they have many opportunities coming their way. And that's what drives me to do what I do today, actually.
And Trisha, how about you? Do you have experiences that you can
the one that
speak to?
The one that popped in my head is when I think I had blocked. We try to block those. So much of that. So as a new artist, my first single was a song called "She's in Love with the Boy," and it went to #1. It made country music history. It was the first single by a female, first single to go to #1. It was all this really cool stuff, and I got nominated for an award. And I wanted to wear this dress at the awards that was a spaghetti strap, kind of sparkly dress, like what Marilyn Monroe wore to the USO troops. I was like, that was in my head. I'm like, I'm going to wear this dress. I was probably 40, 50 pounds lighter than I am now. I was about a size 10. Big for the industry at that time. It's changed a little bit, but I was feeling it. I was owning it. I was at the top of my game, and I won. I won the award. I go up, I accept the thing. It's wonderful. Everything's great. And the head of my label called my wardrobe stylist and said she shouldn't show her arms. And I could cry telling the story. And I thought, well, screw this guy. What does he know about me? That's what I said. But I didn't show my arms for 20 years. I was asked to say, and so there's things that are said to you, they stay with you. Yeah. So I was, Katie Kirk was leaving the Today Show, and she wanted me to sing with Idina Menzel a song from Wicked, which was like, I'd seen Wicked 4 times. I was like, I'm in, I'm doing it. And we sang For Good, and this was 20-something years into my career. I wore a sleeveless dress on television, and I was heavier than I'd been the first time. And I just didn't, and I know that sounds like such a little thing, but it was a huge thing for a man to tell me she shouldn't do this. And even though I knew better than to carry that, I did. Yeah. And so now, I mean, I'm wearing sleeves today, but only because it's cool. I think I don't want any little girl to feel like she's not enough or not okay because she's not what someone else thinks is perfect. That's not okay to do to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the question was, but that was what came to my head.
And Rebecca, do you have any?
The first thing that came to my mind was when I first moved to New York, and I was so close to a Broadway show, and I didn't get it, and I was on the curb in Times Square crying, and I called my mom, and the pep talk was, you're so much more than what you do. And in this industry, a lot of times, we identify ourselves with whether we're working, what role we're playing, whether someone said something great about us that day, did it gas us up, did it break us down? And so it was such an important lesson for me to learn, and something that I love to pass on in this industry in particular, because we make a lot of sacrifices. I'm in San Francisco for the year. My house is in New Jersey. My family's in Kentucky. But just because I'm here, it doesn't mean this is all I am. I'm so much more than just a role that I play. And it was a really important turning point for me in my mentality in my career in terms of rejection. And so it was, it would have been that. Yeah.
I'm just a big fan of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
And like, if I don't feel it, I can put on a really good show of feeling it. And I think that's really important because like I can't go into a pitch and say all of the things that are making me insecure on the inside or all the reasons I think they're going to reject me. Like, they are not going to fund me. And so, I'm not a big believer in fronting. I think fronting is really dangerous, as we were saying about the perfection thing and all of that. Like, I'm happy to lead with the things that are a challenge for me if I'm going into a sales pitch or something else, and, but recast those as strengths and own those. I think you have to think, how would a white man handle this in the room? And then do your best impression of a white man. And, after I had children, unfortunately I've worked in tech for 25 years, so I've spent a lot of time with them. But after I had children, you mentioned I raised money for Pando on maternity leave, and took a baby fundraising with me, and we raised $2.5 million. And they had never had babies in pitch meetings before. He had an obscene blowout in Mark Andreessen's office, which is all white. And Mark Andreessen is a germaphobe. I should not have gotten funded, but I did. But I do think after I had children, it dawned on me that women have come to believe the most superhuman thing our bodies can do is a weakness, is something that makes us weak. And there was this study that came out a couple weeks ago that showed the only two things that come close to peak human performance are extreme athletes and women who give birth. And if you've given birth, this is true. And it's I always say, if men gave birth, it would be live streamed and sponsored by Mountain Dew. It would be a really, no one would believe this is something that somehow makes us weaker. What a lie we've all believed and been tricked into believing. And so when I would be sitting in rooms with these billionaire bros trying to force us out of business. I mean, Pando had more than $400 million in legal threats, baseless legal threats, to silence our reporting. I had armed guards for 2 weeks. I had to take armed guards to Yo Gabba Gabba Live because of my reporting. Like, you talk about facing down the patriarchy every day. That was like the epitaph of that company. And I would sit in these meetings and I would just say to myself over and over again, like a mantra, I've given birth twice and you literally can't do that.
I'm not sure how to respond.
And that's how they felt.
So when you're talking to VCs and other people out in the tech world and others, when you're talking to people in your industry, when it's kind of a male-dominated profession, what do you say? We talked a little bit about the support of men in the room. Why is that important? Why is it necessary? How do you garner male support and then use that to your benefit, not only to help your individual careers, but also the careers of other people who look like you?
I think it's important to recognize that everyone wants to help, right? And sometimes they don't realize that they want to help until you ask for help. I often find that the biggest support I get is simply by having a conversation and being transparent. So I encourage everyone, if you want to make a movement, just talk about it. That's the starting point. I'm very, very lucky with my executive team, and Frank, as you guys met, where I'm sometimes a little birdie, and say, hey, what about this? What do you think about this? And there's always support, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be helpful.
I just want to embarrass Phoung for a moment. We were in the green room, and you had stepped out of the room, and their kids were talking about how much they adore Hamilton and how, we've got to see it again, we've got to see it again, it was so great. And then they were saying, like, well, maybe we should all go together. And Phoung said, well, and maybe we could see if, I can't remember, you phrased it so perfectly, and I'm going to butcher it, but you said, maybe we could see if Rebecca would like to take us backstage. And she presented it like it was an opportunity of a lifetime for Rebecca to take all of them backstage.
It is an opportunity.
Thank you, Rebecca.
What I love about that moment and what you just said is, like, make the ask. Make the ask. Let someone tell you no. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that women pull back.
Rebecca's story is that I harassed her and her husband at a restaurant. And they were having a nice dinner, and my kids were like, and I said, oh, let's say hello. And I said hello, and I connected with Rebecca on Instagram, and this is how this came to fruition, right? Like, you just have to ask. And you came because I was talking to someone on your team when Garth was here, and I said, I really like Garth, but you know who I really love? I really love his wife. And so this is how things happen. You just have to ask.
So I want to ask you both, Rebecca and Trisha, specifically to speak to that. Why, Phoung has an amazing ability to make people say yes, even when you don't know that's what's happening. But why do you say yes to those opportunities? When you're presented, when you're approached by people in a restaurant or on the street or something else, and they talk to you about, their admiration for what you do and the opportunities that you create, what is it about that? Because you both have incredibly busy lives, and you're performing all the time. What is it that makes you stop and say yes, and give back and reach out in that way?
I think for me, it's just knowing that there was a whole tribe of people that invested in me, and so if I didn't have that investment, where would I be? Starting with my family, and then as I continue to grow in this industry, we continue to just invest in each other as colleagues, as teammates. And so if I didn't have that investment in me, I wouldn't be a quarter of the way to where I am now. And so I just feel like it's a great privilege and a great responsibility to then continue to invest, because how much greater could we be all together if we continue to work together and invest in each other?
Mm-hmm. And you don't know, I've always been that good little Southern girl who used to, for years ago, nobody could look up to me the way I look up to Lena Ronstadt, who's my hero, or nobody could, no, I wouldn't have anything to say to anybody that would make them feel empowered or whatever. But at some point you have to think, there are girls, there are people who, what you say matters to them. And I think about, Lena Ronstadt, who lives here, I'm obsessed with her. There's a restraining order. But the times that I have had a chance to talk with her and be around her, she does not understand how much her encouragement has meant to me. Yeah. And I think if there's someone that I say something to, that I may leave that conversation and I have no idea that something I said sparked something in them. But I mean, I think about being a little girl. If I'd been a 12-year-old girl and I could have got to meet Linda Ronstadt and she would have said, keep singing, I would have been like, Linda Ronstadt told me to keep singing, I'm going to do it. Yeah. I mean, I think that those moments happen and sometimes we're not even aware of that. So it's mostly for me, it's people who just want to say, I like your music, or just want to say, I like your show, or my daughter watches your show, or whatever. And I love that because I want young people to realize that, like, the cooking shows, we're silly, we're not scripted, I wear costumes, it's crazy, but I also...
You should watch it on Saturday mornings on the Food Network.
But I'm also not a chef, I'm a home cook like my mom, and I want people to go, I can cook, I can do that too, and I want, it's a wonderful power it's a superpower to be able to cook for people that you love. It's a wonderful thing. I want people to know how to do that. So I think it's that interaction that you just don't ever know. And again, what you said about the people that lifted us up and the people that helped us, it's like it's a responsibility. To whom much is given, much is expected. Mm-hmm. It's like you're supposed to give back.
Mm-hmm. And let me say, as the non-celebrity on the panel, it's honestly, every single person, it makes sense that people look up to you guys, right? All three of you. I mean, your story's phenomenal. You've done so much for women here. You know, you're like the thing everyone wants to see and sings, and like, you're a legend. Like, of course people look up to you guys, but like, you know, I mean, every single person in this room is a hero to someone. Every single person in this room, someone is looking up to you right now. And I don't care if that's your child, I don't care if that's your niece or nephew, I don't care if that's, you know, a younger person on your team. You probably don't realize. I think the majority of time we don't realize it. Like, I spend a ton of time with like the 8th grade girls at my kids' school because, first of all, they're so ferocious and fearless. They give me so much hope for the future. But it's like, I have little 8th graders that look up to me, and frankly, that's more important than almost like, you know, any other accolade I could get, or being on whatever television show or whatever. I mean, anyone looking up to you and being like, I could do things differently as a woman in this world. You know, I could wear, you know, shorts and cowboy boots to drop off and still run a company and be a single mom, and like, she makes it work. Like, who cares? And like, anyone is looking up to you at any point in time. And it's so important to know, like, the power of being a role model. Even if you're not like one of these women on the panel, like, you are a role model to someone. And, you know, just being that shining light that someone looks to, like, you have no idea who you're a role model to right now, but I guarantee it's multiple people for every single person.
Yeah, I totally agree. An issue that's near and dear to my heart as a woman of color is how to advance diversity on all fronts. We talk a lot about equality and gender, and ethnicity is also part of that as well. So I wonder, what are your thoughts about, when you're thinking about equality and uplifting women and things, how that fits in women of color and people of other diverse backgrounds, LGBTQ? How can we be supportive of each other in moving things forward?
I'll speak for my industry, which is largely white. You know, I mean, that's and male. I think that it's incredibly cool for me to see, especially African American artists coming into country music and being accepted. I can't imagine the path. It's hard to be in the music industry no matter what you look like and who you are. But to see it, I mean, when I was a kid, the only African American artist was Charlie Pride, and then it's like, here's our one black guy in our industry. It's like, that's it. And I'm like, why is it that way? And now there's this beautiful African American girl named Mickey Guyton who's coming along. We have Kane Brown, who's mixed race. And I again, it's like, it's sad that I can name them because there's only like 3 or 4, but we're moving in that direction. We're in such a creative industry to be so exclusive, to keep people out. It boggles the mind. And creativity doesn't care. Like music doesn't care. We listen to it on the radio. You like it because it moves you. You don't really. I don't care if it's written by a man or a woman. I don't care the gender or the sexual preference of who's singing the song if I'm moved by the song. But it's kind of that thing we're talking about, where how do we change it? There just has to be more. There have to be people who encourage and hire and sign these artists. It's not just wishing to make it so and going, oh, I just wish we could all love each other. We have to actively, are people who are making those decisions. I'm not a record label, but if I am, my job is to sign more people that look different.
And I think, I mean, as a white woman, it's an interesting position because I have a lot to say about gender, but I need to do a lot of listening when it comes to race and ethnicity. And I think there are a lot of people who, this is why intersectionality is so powerful. There's a lot of people who may check one diversity box, and so they think they understand what everyone else who is also being held out is going through. But this ability to be able to advocate for yourself, but step back and really listen to others and understand and fight for them is super important. I think one of the best gifts that's been given to me is I have a gender fluid son, and it has made me understand every single thing about sexuality and gender and the LGBT community, like on a deeper level than I ever could have as just a well-meaning liberal in San Francisco who wants to be accepting of people. And I just think the more you can listen and listen and listen and check your own struggle when you're having those conversations, because it isn't the same, that's the most important thing we can do.
I agree. I think it's really important to listen. How do you get people to listen?
Who wants to take that?
I sort of force people to listen. I mean, that's the truth. I'm very vocal, and that's why I encourage everyone to be very vocal. And sometimes the shy ones are the most powerful ones, right? I find that I tend to be very vocal, but Frank actually has told me to be even more vocal at times. And I think that when you're listening, be sure to listen carefully and then voice your opinion shortly thereafter, because that's your true heart speaking.
I think I try to use as much as possible my position as my purpose. And I think, in this industry, we live out loud a lot. And people are watching, and you never know who is watching. And so I just feel like when it comes to championing those things that you believe in, I just think that you just have to live out loud and speak for what you believe in, speak for where you want to go and what you want to include when it comes to all of that, because people are always watching in this age of social media, and we just have a very out loud presence. And so I think it's really important to speak your beliefs.
I think there's ways to do it effectively. I think if you come into a room and tell someone they're mansplaining to you, they're going to go on the defensive. I think, there are ways, even if it's what you think, like there are ways I've found that shuts people down. And so I think the language you use, if you want to have an impact, is really important. I think also like picking your battles. I mean, because take it from someone whose job was to be a professional buzzkill at all times. Like you cannot be a buzzkill at all times. Like I'm invited to no Christmas parties. Like, everyone in this industry hates me or has at some point. But it's like, you really do have to, unfortunately we live in a world where people are like, oh, she's always bringing up the gender, And so it's like, pick the shots that are super important and like build the coalition and go in with data. Because I said earlier, they won't change an industry because you show them data. But if you show them data, then it makes them confront their own bias, and they've got a choice. They can either change, or they have to own that there's something other than data that's informing that decision. And so I think arguing the case the right way, there's a massive diversity in outcomes that come from speaking up. And if you structure it the right way, you have a good argument, you have a coalition, and you've picked the case that is unimpeachably speaks to the end you want to make, you're gonna have a different outcome than just being pissed off all the time.
And so, and I know that we're coming close to time, so a couple more questions. What does success then look like for you all? When you think about where you're going, the path that you're blazing, gender equality, diversity, inclusion, what does success look like for you if you had the crystal ball to look 20 years into your future? What does that look like?
Success for me is the future generation, as I stated before. I think of my daughter, Haley. Wave, Haley. And my other daughter, who's at soccer camp and was very bummed not to be here. But I hear the things that they talk about in the car with their friends, and I am inspired by them. And to me, success means that the voice is being heard at a younger age, and conversations are taking place at a much sooner time than I did. I don't remember talking about any of the things that they talked about at age 10 and 11. So it's the future for me.
I agree 100%. We have 3 daughters who are in their 20s, and they are so open. They're so confident in who they are. They're so inclusive. And when I was a young girl, I think I was more encouraged to keep any feeling to myself that might not jive with what was happening in the room. And that's something that's not easy to get rid of as an adult. And they don't have that. So to hear them speak their truth makes me so inspired to speak my own. And it makes me feel like, I mean, we see all the things that are negative in the world because that's kind of the way the world works. Everybody wants us to see all the bad stuff. But when I see them interacting and I see them loving one another and being kind, I'm inspired by that. And I feel like we're going to be. I feel like the future is good. There's a lot of good.
I'm the same way. It's the future generation. I have 3 incredible nieces that are in Kentucky, and I feel like just because of what I do, I'm able to encourage their minds to grow bigger, to grow more loving, to grow more powerful, because I'm able to show them so many parts of the world and the universe that they haven't been able to see just because they're coming to visit me. And so I'm so excited that, you know, they get to come to San Francisco and they get to see the pride flags and they get to ask me about it. And, you know, it's not just them being raised in this, in Kentucky and raised with this closed-minded worldview. I'm just so thankful that I'm able to encourage them to open up their minds and to open up their thoughts and their questions when they do come to visit, and that I'm able to teach them new things about the world.
Well, I mean, I'm really lucky that like my day-to-day job at Chairman Mom is something that makes women's lives better every day. And like, you know, we've been around a little more than a year, and every single day I get letters from women of substantial ways that our tribe made a difference in their lives. And I think the ability to grow that to scale of millions and millions of women around the world is incredibly rewarding. I mean, I spent most of my career calling out bad things and elevating good things, and to actually build something that is a better alternative that doesn't exist, that every day makes women's lives better, is incredibly rewarding. And I feel like beyond that, like, you know, we all know the odds, and I know as a white woman, my odds are better even, you know, than women of color. But, you know, you look at income inequality, you know, someone like me gets a 15% hit, but you look at raising venture capital, we take a 98% hit. Like, the startup industry and the venture capital ecosystem is so much more sexist than large corporate tech companies. And I think I am really lucky. I've been in this industry 25 years, and I have an amazing network, and I do have men who have supported my career and invested in me, you know, at times that it didn't make a lot of sense. And I feel a responsibility, given that position, to build and scale this company to a point that I prove a woman can build a scalable software company. And to the point that people regret not investing in me. And then I want to help every other female founder around me get bigger and bigger, whether it's just giving them my money, amplifying them on social media, whatever it is, these little things, so that, you know, in 10 years, VCs look around and they look at all the money they lost by not investing in us. And, you know, I am lucky enough, I moved here in my early 20s and spent 25 years working here and have a network, and I'm not going to take that for granted. I'm going to use that position to make people regret not backing women if it kills me.
So I know these panels frequently end on asking for a piece of advice, so I'm going to do that because because I will tell you, you know, I think you all, to me, are the epitome of my definition of success. You are women who are from dynamically different backgrounds, from different industries. You all care and are passionate about what you do and what you believe in. And you're working toward your goals both in your profession and in making sure that other people who come behind you have the same opportunities for success that you have had. So I think it is worthwhile to get, as a last comment from each of you, what is the advice, being as successful as you are, what is the advice that you would give to people who want to emulate what you do and want to aspire to be what you are in each of your industries?
I will say success looks different for everyone, so don't measure yourself next to your peer. If you feel successful, if you're proud of what you're doing, that's success.
I would say listen to your gut, listen to that little voice inside, and to also encourage and inspire the women around you and the girls around you that they can do anything they want to do. I mean, that sounds trite, but it's real.
I would say exactly what my mom said to me. You're so much more than what you are, what you do, and to also encourage the women around you, because in this business, it's so incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. I would say never listen to anyone who tells you you're too much of something. Because we are all too much of something for somebody. Yeah. And if you constantly listen to that and whittle those things down to try to please that person, you're going to whittle away all the good stuff, and you're going to wind up being nothing. So when someone tells you you're too much of something, take it as a compliment You know, at one point, when I was in a massive battle in my career as a journalist, people kept saying to me, about me when they were covering me, well, she's no shrinking violet. So I got violets tattooed on my wrist that don't shrink. Because it's a dismissive way of saying I'm a woman who won't go away. Own the things that people tell you are too much, because someone's probably saying that because they're scared of it.
Thank you all so much. Everyone, please.
You can't go anywhere yet, Miss Trisha. Thank you. So I want to, first of all, thank Crystal for an amazing job moderating. So today we discussed the importance of diversity and inclusion and how it just is instrumental across all industries. So with that, I'm going to bring it back to Miss Yearwood here to talk about what inspired you to write this song.
The song was not written by me. I should say I wrote it for the camera.
Same.
Written by two girls and a guy, and I asked the guy, Eric Dillon, about being the guy in the room for this song, and he said, I have a mom and I have a wife, and I want them to feel like they can do anything. I picked this picture that they showed earlier of me as a little girl, because I was wearing shoes that were hand-me-downs, they were too big for me, but I was about 6 years old, and I had my arms out, and it was like before you learn to be self-conscious and before you learn to doubt yourself and all those things, that's when the possibilities are endless, and I want to keep that feeling. I picked the song because I liked it, and then it kind of emerged as this single, and I'm proud of seeing the response from the girls and the women and the guys for just making them feel like that whole line, you got this, baby. There's another line in this song that says, when they try to hold you down under that water, just come up baptized, baby, let it make you stronger. I love that line too. So it's kind of it's a message we need to hear without being preachy or pretentious. And the female writers, Connie Harrington and Caitlin Smith, again, I'd love to take ownership of writing it, but I'm just honored that I got a chance to sing it. And I also feel like the least important person on this panel today, so I feel weird being up here by myself. But I'm honored to be a part of today.
Well, thank you so much. And with that, we're actually going to show you guys the video. So would you like to watch it with her?
This is a lyric video we did. The regular video comes out Friday. It's an actual video. This is a lyric video. I'm going to step aside now.
Every girl in this town's felt the wind in her hair from the Ferris wheel spinning at the county fair. Looked out from the top and wondered what's out there for me. Every girl in this town's had a Friday night that ended in tears in the yellow porch light, thinking it was love, but it was just 17. And we dance and we laugh till we all fall down. We keep kissing boys, trying to figure it out, stretching for stars on our tiptoe hearts, trying to get our big dreams off the ground, like every girl in this town. Every girl in this town is somebody's daughter, an angel or devil, no matter what they call her. If they try to hold you down under that water, just come up baptized, baby, let it make you stronger. Every girl in this town, every girl in this town, yeah, dust yourself off, put your lipstick on, you got this, baby, so what if you don't? We dance and we laugh till we all fall
you so much for sharing that with us. And who else loved it? Yes. So I'm going to pitch for her. Go buy the album. Go watch her cooking show. But I want to personally thank you, Rebecca. Go see Hamilton. It's here until March for sure, right? And then Sarah as well for joining this very special event. I'm inspired by each of you, and I hope that you guys out there will continue the dialogue of what we talked about and the importance of diversity and inclusion. I also want to thank Frank, our executive team, and our board members who are here today to support us. This wouldn't have happened without their support. So thank you so much, and thank you to all of you for joining us. And I hope that you guys can, like I said, continue this dialogue. And as of now, we ask that you join us at the well for some additional pastries. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but those biscuits, that's Trisha's recipe. But it's her recipe, though. It's her recipe. So please go to the well. Thank you so much.